Hello. Welcome to the Interjections podcast. The Undiscovered Decade is our subtitle. That's because we have been, for the past 4 years, going through the 1990s, 1 month at a time, looking for hidden gems, trying to find them in their 30th anniversary. And this month we're covering a genre that I like quite a bit, the Western, with a film directed by Walter Hill, who I think is sort of a hidden gem himself of a director. And he covered a film called Geronimo, an American Legend, and then I have a feeling might have gotten immediately overshadowed by another Western that came out at the end of December 1993. Similarly to how Clint last month overshadowed himself. I don't know what you guys think, but we can get into that later. As for now, this is a great piece to showcase a magnificent actor, Wes Studi, who played Geronimo himself. And it has an all-star cast, including young Matt Damon, old roommates Gene Hackman and Robert Duvall, and then another actor that sort of disappeared to time, Jason Patric, who I think was maybe the best part of this movie. I don't know. What do you guys think?
He almost plays his role like he did in the Alamo when he was playing
He did get another
Bowie.
Western 10 years later. So
He was also
it's
with
weird.
Speed 2 Cruise Control, so
yeah, that's like all I knew.
Completely
him.
lost the time.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and now he's doing the Bruce Willis boarding.
He's on cruise control in his career.
Yeah. I didn't realize that this was basically Matt Damon's first major role.
Yeah, I didn't realize that
Like
either.
he's basically, if anybody has the most screen time, I think it's Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Obviously he's the one doing the narration.
Yeah, he's kind of he's the lens that the audience is viewing the movie. Like he's us
He
essentially.
apparently dropped out of Harvard to take this role because I feel like it's a role of a lifetime if you're like shooting from junior in college to film.
Right.
So,
In a
In a film based on a historical figure, so he's basically doing his thesis.
yeah.
By
a
doing this
Western
movie. He's
epic.
just skipping the degree and just like, yeah, no.
His thesis was Good Will Hunting because he was apparently writing
Oh,
that
yeah.
during
So
Harvard.
this is his junior thesis then,
yeah. So
or sophomore thesis.
he did a good job either way. I don't know exactly what age he was, but pretty cool that he came out of nowhere for this.
I will say, the good thing is they don't do the white savior stereotype with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because they established pretty early on, especially during the ambush with the lynch mob, that Geronimo doesn't need the white man. He can, he's perfectly capable without them.
I was gonna say it's kind of the exact opposite of white saviors. Like it showcases how there were legitimately good soldiers who wanted tried to do the best that they could under the circumstances and try to mediate in any way that they possibly could, and it still went south for everybody involved, and they even mentioned I guess later in the movie when they're talking about later on in their life and then recounting, they're just thinking back to then, it's just yeah, not great.
You said that in a more
Matt Damon's character, he expressed deep regret, to be more specific.
Yeah, that's essentially.
Well, at the end, he says he feels nothing but shame, and then he resigns. So.
Oh yeah.
Jimmy, well, I looked up and then told Jimmy for the next half hour to hour after we watched the film. All of this is pretty fairly accurate to what happened, down to the year and month, and this is what they did to these people, like casting Jason Patric's major off into nowhere in Wyoming. Nelson Miles took over and sort of just dismantled Gene Hackman's whole cavalry, that sort of thing. So and he quit. He resigned out of shame, and then just ended up working in Mexico. It's pretty much.
Yeah, I will say one thing that was kind of funny about the beginning is they open on a still image of Geronimo, and it looks like a GQ magazine cover shoot.
Well, because that title is going across him, right?
Yeah.
It's a very 90s style.
The slow, the slow zoom in.
Yes.
Yeah. There is one thing that's fairly inaccurate, but it's okay because it gave a really cool death scene to Robert Duvall. He actually outlived Jason Patric's character by like 10 years. He just didn't die in the thing they did in this, but it's cool.
Which is and I pointed out to Tristan
license.
that like that scene that Duvall's character died in was like very it didn't, to me, like it didn't fit, and it felt like there was like, are they taking a page from Patton's backstory? Because when they were chasing Pancho Villa in Mexico, Patton kind of just ended up in a bar and kind of had a gunfight with the locals.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a mix. So maybe he heard that story and he's like, I'm going to put that in my Geronimo movie.
Yeah.
I was going to say, as you look through like Walter Hill's filmography, you notice that he's big on shootouts. So
this
he
is
probably
also,
just wanted to include one.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
This is also sort of John Milius's work. Like he might have had a huge hand in deciding what would actually happen in the film, since he wrote it with Hill.
I feel like the big scene, the big first scene between Gene Hackman and Geronimo was definitely John Milius, just from the dialogue standpoint. Because at one point, Geronimo pointedly asked him, he says, "How much land does the White Eye need?" And they could have been a eloquent retort, and he just is kind of speechless, and because he doesn't have an answer.
Yeah,
he knows it's imperialism.
Yeah, he doesn't really like it himself, but it's his job.
Right.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it.
They don't really demonize the soldiers in a way, but they also don't let him off the hook.
Miles.
Yeah, they also don't let him off the hook as well.
Yeah.
Especially at the end when the scouts are treated the way they are.
Right. Yeah. I liked that scout as well. Chato.
You know what's funny is Chato is played by Charles Bronson in a movie.
Is he really?
The 70s, yeah. Called Chato's Land.
Oh, that's cool. So if you want to see a prequel.
Yeah. If you want to see it completely whitewashed.
Yeah, especially this is an Italian guy.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's the 70s.
I'm going to tan my skin and play Chato.
Yeah. Did you have subtitles for all the scenes where
I had to put subtitles on. Yeah.
So Jimmy and I realized far too late that they were speaking and it wasn't intentional to not have subtitles.
Yeah, because like the first few times when they spoke another language, like it was like a couple lines, but like it was very easy to infer like what they were saying. So it was like, oh, it's much whatever.
Like,
but then later when they started having like more dialogue, it was like, oh, we're missing out on it.
Yeah, like full scenes talking to each other about the other scenes. We're like, I thought it was a bold move to like make us have to infer with their eyes what's going on.
Yeah.
Wait, are you talking about subtitles when they're speaking Apache?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because mine automatically had like regular subtitles on too, which was fine because for the most of the movie it's really quiet. But
right.
Yeah.
No, I mean I always like that choice because there are some things where you're not supposed to know what they're talking about.
Obviously, like
so for Jimmy and I, it kind of was that way.
Yeah, like obviously Jason Patric is fluent.
Right.
But like Gene Hackman, I think maybe he might not be too well versed in the language, so he should be kind of an outsider.
Yeah. So I thought that's what they were doing for us. Like we're not allowed into the conversations.
Obviously, it's a total disservice at the end when they're on the train.
Right.
Because Geronimo has a big speech.
We did turn the subtitles on for that because we were like, we should probably know how this ends.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then
our subtitles was weird.
Yeah, we ended up with it was a minute behind. So
okay.
So it was fine that we honestly didn't have them. Our version just wasn't great. This is a problem we mentioned earlier for subtitles. There just isn't a great service out there for it. And it's always different between different streaming services. So it's kind of annoying when it's a thing like this for a language that you don't know for sure.
Right.
It's a bit disappointing. But to that point, I think we give Wes Studi a lot of credit because he was able to carry those scenes and convey what was happening with his people to Jimmy and I at least. So,
Mhm.
he was just fantastic. I didn't remember, but he just won an honorary Academy Award one of the last 2 years for his contributions for Native American cinema. And I believe he's the first Native American person to win an Oscar in general, unless there's something below the line that I'm not familiar with. Good actor. He was in The Doors a little bit.
Oh yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He's in one of Jimmy's favorite movies, Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's the villain.
Mhm.
What? He was the hero. What are you talking about?
Okay.
He had a tragic end.
Yeah.
Did you realize, Jimmy, that he's the guy that Christian Bale is transporting in Hostels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you
remember that.
remembered. I didn't know if you remembered. It's been a few years.
Hey, I remember the 5th of November.
Oh my god. How do you feel about Robert Duvall's performance?
I tell you what, you brought it up. That death scene is chef's kiss, man.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sleep here for a while.
Nah.
What an exquisite death scene.
Yeah.
I hope that's my last words.
Yeah.
It's funny because so
Not in the
up
way he
until
died.
then, of the soldiers, he's the one that's the most borderline racist. So
Right. Yeah, the whole first half hour, Jimmy and I are like, oh, so he's going to be the one that's going to turn on Geronimo. He's going to like catch him or something.
Yeah, he's gonna do something heinous, and then it turns out like he didn't do anything heinous at all. Like ever, he just said some like bad things, and then you kind of shrug it off because like he's just an old man.
He's
I
just
was
set
gonna
in
say,
his ways.
he kind of there is a redemption for him, but it's not cloying. It's not like all of a sudden he has this begrudging respect. You can infer it through his performance that he's resigned himself to the fact that they're gonna have to coexist in a way.
Right. It was pretty cool. All the performances could stand out. You could have a favorite character for any of the 5 main actors. How did you
But I think what you said, Jason Patric, though, deserves special notice for sure.
Was he your favorite?
Yeah, I think he was great.
He
But he was great in the 90s.
has this confidence that I just never expected because I just sort of wrote him off because of Speed 2. So I've never really seen him in anything.
You saw Lost Boys?
Don't know that I was paying well enough attention.
He did have a little bit of a mini comeback in the 2000s with Narc.
Right, I missed that.
And he's great in that. But yeah, ever since then, he's been relegated to direct-to-video jail.
Yeah. I was going to ask, how did you guys feel about it as a Western? Are you guys fans of Westerns or?
See, I
It's
had a
weird,
hard time because I'm not usually.
Yeah.
I think I'd lump
felt
it
like it-
into more of a historical drama than I would a
Right.
Western.
It felt like a dramatized Ken Burns documentary
You know, it's
to me.
I'm glad you said that, Jeff, because the Ry Cooder music almost sounds like Gettysburg in a way. So it's almost got that docudrama feel to it just from the score.
I don't know. Also, I did see in the trivia that apparently the director indicated that it was more supposed to be about the guys who captured him and not about Geronimo, which might explain why I felt sort of disconnected, because it wasn't like, it felt like it should have been following him the whole time, but it was following these other people. I'm like,
Right.
so it seems like they changed the title in post.
Or just
kind of,
until recently, we weren't really lifting up people, even though we thought we were.
Yeah.
Or,
right. It was just sort of like, oh, you're in this movie, but if the movie bombs at the box office, does it really matter?
Right.
This is
Although I
probably
think this
part of the
bombed.
reason why when they did Wind Talkers, they're like, well, we got to do it through the Nicolas Cage character. We can't do it through the Adam Beach character.
Right.
Right.
Like, okay,
not
we're not
gonna
going to throw it to the Navajo Indian perspective.
These weird path of least resistance, like, to get these things made in the first place was so difficult. But I'm watching it and I'm like, and maybe that's just me and my short attention span these days, but I can't imagine sitting through this in a full movie theater. I don't know
Really?
why. I don't know. I know that's weird, and I know that's
Oh.
a terrible thing to say. Like, it was a good movie.
I could totally watch this in the theater, like
Sure.
Well, that's a
any
difference
day of the
of
week.
I will meet
theater
up with
or
you guys
home.
after.
It's mostly, I don't know. Going to the theater is what helps me focus. I kept glancing at my phone because we were here,
Right.
and I didn't need to. There was no reason to. No one was texting me.
No, that's a whole other debate.
That's my
But-
anxiety more than anything. But having in a theater just helps me not do anything because the lights are out.
But yeah, this could have been like an episodic miniseries because there's so much they could have covered, maybe, especially
Yeah.
from the Geronimo point of view.
Yeah, it
They
is
could
funny
have
that
like
they.
changed perspectives with each episode, but now that you said that Walter Hill wanted to do it from the cavalry point of view, it would have been more well-rounded as a miniseries. Obviously, that's more
Yeah.
the fashion nowadays. Back
Yeah, I
then,
mean, yeah, Duvall was in a couple of miniseries that were westerns, so I
Lonesome
think maybe
Dove.
this could have been in the line with those.
right?
But
It's almost like there was an edict back then, as opposed to now that things can't go over 2 hours.
mm-hmm.
Because there's plenty of movies that came out around this like time period where you're like, they could have actually added some runtime to that,
Right.
as opposed to
Thinking of
now where everything's too long.
Just because
You
it's
know-
been in my head the last 2 months, Dances with Wolves was an anomaly at the length it was.
Right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
also-
Kevin Costner was getting away with putting movies over 2 hours.
Mhm.
It was just weird because, like, like we said earlier, Matt Damon is supposed to be the audience because the entire, like, anytime the cavalry is talking, it's just exposition about, oh, this is what the Native Americans do. This is how they live. This is what they do. And it was just like, it felt very explainy,
Mm-hmm.
exposition-y rather than like, and then it was just quiet talking, gunfight for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And on apropos, it realistically, I'm sure that's exactly how it happened, but I don't know. I was having trouble with it.
In
But
terms
that's
of the,
just me. I'm
I get what you're saying.
The gunfights are actually surprisingly short. They
Right.
kind of happen like in a
Yeah.
maybe not 5 minutes.
span of maybe a minute.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
well,
Which
in,
I guess
in
how
terms
they
of
would
like,
happen. It would just be they start shooting and then they scatter. So I guess that is
Right.
kind
for like exposition's sake, I thought it was better that instead of using the narration throughout when the Jason Patric character came in, and he was like the liaison with the Apache. So when he was explaining things, I thought that was way more dynamic than just having some dry narration.
Right.
Like, oh, okay, this is a better way of getting that information across, using him as a conduit.
It's like show and tell instead of
Exactly.
just telling.
Yeah, that would make it more dynamic for Jeff.
Right.
No, I like your point.
that's
It's
that also
you're right.
that goes back to why it felt more like a docudrama than anything.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because I wonder if I was starting to lose my interest, and that's why I was checking my phone. Because it was just he was explaining things, so I didn't need to look at it. I could listen as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
So
It's
there
like
is.
they took a talking head interview and just superimposed it over the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good narration, but
Yeah.
there is a different way to do this, and that's something that could have happened in editing. Maybe they found that they wanted him to explain some things better. Maybe they ran out of money or time.
That could have been a test screening thing too. The
Right?
studio was just like, the audience is confused. You need to.
Yeah. Who is this
Yeah,
guy?
because the narration is necessary. Like the external narration is necessary
Mhm.
because I would know. I don't follow enough history to know who any of these people are
Even I didn't know who they were,
out of pocket, and I'm
other
sure.
than Geronimo.
Yeah, and maybe when the movie came out, there were a lot more people in the audience that are just like, "Holy shit, that's whatever that guy is." I can't even remember anybody's name right now.
Nelson Miles was the one that replaces him, but that's the most famous person. Actually, he was the last.
Oh my God, that's General Crook.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
know
Well,
him.
That's
General
the
Crook.
Lieutenant Charles Gatewood. Like, what are we?
Yeah, General Crook was apparently super famous, but obviously not anymore. You know.
Sure.
And Nelson Miles, I was about to say, was the last major general of the United States, which was the first thing that George Washington did. They took it away after the turn of the century. So we haven't had one. It became a new thing, like the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So he's the most important person, and no one knows who Nelson Miles is anymore. You know?
Yeah. He's become irrelevant.
But
Right.
I don't know. I also think that's part of why they titled it Geronimo in American Legend. I was going to say when you said he's not in as much of his own film, it's sort of like we don't know what he was doing when he was away from the camps they were putting him in. So he became sort of a legend.
That's
There's,
true.
Yeah.
there's a way to put this in
Yeah.
like how they did with the Jesse James film that Corey and I like a lot, where
Yeah.
there were books about Jesse James, and Jesse James even read them and like chuckled to himself, like this isn't true in that film.
Yeah, like they're playing into the myth part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, that's
I don't think
that's
they did
also
it, but maybe that's what they thought they were doing at this time, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
All this to say, like it's really well done, and like even especially like the wardrobe and art direction and cinematography and like all the production design aspects of it.
Right.
The performances are great. I just have trouble with westerns sometimes. I don't know why. It's just
They're
a thing.
very dry. I don't know
Yeah.
why I love them, but
It's a lot of slow walking, slow talking. You know,
time to think.
That's right, Pilgrim.
mild racism. You know.
Yeah, that's why I love it.
Yeah.
Let's cut that. Yeah, I think there's something about being on the frontier and there's nothing else you can do that I like about westerns. And so this is just like, especially say Gene Hackman's character, his conversation with Geronimo about this is what America does. I can't stop them. It's sort of like he's
Yeah.
moving forward and has nowhere else to go. He's doing his best to alleviate the worst parts of it. And so that's sort of what I like about
He's almost
like this is what I gotta do.
Yeah, and like Gene Hackman's character is like he kind of reflects a little bit of like a large part of the American populace at that time, because like they did kind of like feel bad with what they were doing to the Native Americans, like, but they're like, hey, to be fair, why don't we just reserve some land for you and then you could farm and live there and everything be hunky dory. And then like they're living there on the reservations and it's like this land is shit, and then like we're not allowed to do things because apparently we're dangerous, so you got to have the army here as police.
Right.
And then like a lot of these like people, like, you know, they're warriors, so like you kind of neuter them to a very large degree, so like there's a hefty resentment. But like Gene Hackman doesn't understand that the resentment. He's like come on, like it's peace, no war, like what do you want? So like when Geronimo like just backs out of his initial deal of like, yeah, no, I'll live on the reservation, just like, you betrayed my trust.
Yeah, they have different sets of values is the problem.
Yeah.
He's almost like a caseworker for their transition. He's like, look, guys.
It's an interesting way to look at it. I do feel like for the time this was made, it did touch on a lot more of the aspects that we're still talking about today, as far as like, you know, they were aware that they were, you know, sort of imperializing, and they were kind of touching on that as best they could.
No, I think they were more than aware. They were fully
no, but
in
I
it,
like
but we're pointing it out for the first time in this movie. Maybe we didn't know in the 80s or 70s.
Right. It wasn't like a rah-rah Cowboys versus Indian, like, you know.
Oh yeah.
It was a lot more sensitive to the native perspective.
Even though it still wasn't like entirely. Like we're getting that finally now, and still could do more.
Yeah.
I think this was the beginning of finally like actually listening to what the atrocities were.
Yeah, which is why apparently like this movie was not very well received, with the exception of like I'm this is going off of the trivia.
Yeah.
Like the native population was very very supportive of it. Which was, I thought, was interesting.
Yeah.
Let me find the exact thing. But
I did like all of the actors in Geronimo's group. There was that old Nana the gray haired guy.
Yeah.
He was pretty cool. Also had a lot of good points, I think, at least when I knew what he was saying.
Yeah.
But I particularly liked the what Robert Duvall called the ambush when the Dreamer was killed. It was a good way to finally see what they are doing to prevent war. They themselves are trying to prevent war, but he looks aggressive to the white man. So that's why he gets shot. And then they call it an ambush because they were standing up for themselves. And so it's sort of a reversal of what was happening, right? I don't know.
Well, the ambush part was like when one of their scouts shot an officer.
Sure,
because like the situation got really heated, and like because the Dreamer guy was a medicine man, a priest essentially. So like a holy man got killed, and like what do you do next? You kill the guy that killed your holy man.
Right. It went out of hand because someone shot first, and no one should have shot. Itchy trigger fingers caused the ambush.
Yeah.
And then they call it an ambush because they won.
A lot of the times, right before like something tense happens, and the cavalry does what it does. It's not like any typical westerns where they just charge in and go and then shoot. It's surprisingly like tactical and like more reserved. Like they're like, hey, we're gonna line up and we're gonna ease up on them, and then boom, or like we're gonna hold our ground. There's no glorious like chases like you would see in all the other westerns, because they even say it in right before like what's potentially a skirmish. They're like, hey, if they start running, we're not chasing, because that's how we get like split up and they start picking us off. So and the rule of the game is like, kind of just stand your ground, but just kind of, if you can avoid a fight, essentially. But yeah, I know I'm done. You could go on, Jeff.
No, it was literally just sorry. So the film had mixed reception from critics, but was praised by Native American groups. That was it.
You were just confirming yourself.
Right.
I don't know.
Affirmation.
Needed validation.
Don't worry, Jim. It's these interjections.
It is.
Any other interesting trivia things? I forgot to look this month again.
No, there were only like 5 things.
Yeah. That tends to happen with our films.
Yeah. Well, apparently Jason Patric showed his considerable horsemanship. Apparently he knew before, like,
all right, fancy pants.
He knew how to horseback ride before this movie. There's a longer version of the movie. Oh God. But he's forced to cut it down to 12 minutes.
I like how you're like, God, I could never. And I'm like, oh, give me more.
In his own words, he describes the version as a damn good version and felt that the studio should have released that version on DVD.
Could have pulled Ridley Scott and they could have had
someday.
Oh wait, there's more.
Oh,
live
reactions.
Right. Jason Patric beat Patrick Swayze and Alec Baldwin for the title role, or for the main role.
Yeah, no, I don't like their fit.
No.
Did Patrick Swayze play
Pecos Bill?
Huh?
Was he Pecos Bill in something?
Yeah, he's a Pecos Bill or Paul Bunyan and what was that? Tall Tale?
Tall Tale, yeah, that's next year.
See, this is an interesting one. A made-for-TV film about Geronimo was released on TNT 5 days before the release of this movie. Some accounts attribute this as having a detrimental effect to the box office take for this movie. Walter Hill said, I don't think there are a hell of a lot of movies where you can basically take the same story, show it to 50 million people, and then bring yours out a week later and think that you're going to do great. What can you say? My Geronimo has better locations?
Yeah. I remember seeing that in the Wikipedia page. Thinking, I wonder if that's why it failed. Yeah, that's too bad.
It also looks like there was a glut of stuff, I think.
Yeah, I mean, December's always full of a lot of things. Get ready in a second. But
was it like, but I'm wondering, was there like a special anniversary around 1993 with Geronimo? And I'm wondering if it's like us, like with this podcast, like obviously we're doing things that are 30 years past, at the end, but there are other people that are talking about the more known ones.
I mean, he died in 1909. The whole thing took place maybe around 89, so maybe that's what it is. Like
Yeah.
1889?
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that is like they started making it around the 100th anniversary.
This
Yeah.
could be one of those things that was just in the zeitgeist at the same time, like Deep
Right.
Impact, Armageddon time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it was the 70s, really, when all this is taking place. 86 is when Miles replaces Crook. So that's really towards the end of the film. So I don't know. It's not exactly an anniversary.
Yeah.
But I think this was, I mean, Westerns in general were becoming in vogue again because, like last month we were discussing, Dances with Wolves and then Unforgiven were the two best pictures in 90 and 92. So I think this just became a thing to do for the early 90s. Like Westerns were big epics. And so they're
Yeah.
like, what could we do from the native perspective? So, and then they just happen to have two productions going at the same time, kind of like your Armageddon and Deep Impact or Ants and A Bug's Life. And then one just happened to be on TV, so everyone's like, well, I don't need to go out. And that's the
Yeah.
unfortunate thing when they're coming up that close to each other.
Right.
I remember that coming out too, the TV one. So
I want to play Geronimo in that.
look that up.
Hang on.
You have it already up?
Hang on. Give me a second.
And then Geronimo's Wikipedia himself. Who can get
Geronimo, Joseph Running Fox.
there?
Well, hey, at least they didn't whitewash it.
Yeah,
Although-
it has a wider scope.
Oh my God. Ah.
What?
Oh no, it looked.
Oh,
That's
Teddy
so weird.
Roosevelt is in this other Geronimo.
Teddy Roosevelt,
Yeah, I don't know how much.
it's played by
they
Barry
need
Bostwick.
someone
No,
named
'cause
Ray Gear.
You turn on. Oh, that's so bizarre.
Ooh, August Schellenberg is in it. He was the guy running the park in Free Willy. One of
Funny.
the friends, the boy. I don't know. I like Free Willy a lot.
I mean, it was
I
a good
like
move.
August Schellenberg ended up playing Powhatan in The New World in 05.
Oh God,
So you go to.
Oh, like
All right.
that?
So
that
you,
movie was horrible.
Oh yeah, you hate what's his face?
I hate Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
so even the IMDb is confused. You go to Joseph Running Fox's
Oh
page,
no.
and the trailer that plays next to his headshot is for the other Geronimo movie.
Oh, but
They're like, look, you
that's
want to see
so
the big
bad.
budget one. You don't want to see this.
did he ever do anything else? Did we see? I'm curious
He-
about other Geronimo, the one we're not covering.
he's still doing stuff. He did a show called Dark Winds, The Politician. Did a lot of TV.
Ooh, you'll like this,
Avenged.
Jimmy and Corey. He's in Ravenous.
He
Oh,
was Sons
Oh,
of
okay.
Anarchy.
hey, he's the one smoking the peyote
Yeah.
with
Isn't it,
David Arquette.
is it an episode of Sons of Anarchy?
Oh, he's in that new show Dark Winds that's on AMC.
Yeah.
Heard that's good.
All right.
He's
All
still
right,
doing
good
stuff.
for him. No Oscar, but
But yeah, that's wow.
Well, he would have gotten an Emmy.
Because I'm like, no, that
Unfortunate.
doesn't look like him. It looks like the other guy. Did they just look this? No,
Am I
no. It even
racist?
says
Am
play
I the
trailer for
racist one?
right. But no, it even says play trailer for Geronimo and American Legend. I'm like, that's not the same movie.
Yeah.
Jeff, you're part of the problem, you basic white
Well,
man.
maybe we're the ones that can help fix IMDb.
Dear
We can
IMDb,
report this. We were making a
Ex-
podcast the other day.
excuse me.
Well,
On behalf-
actually,
You need to do the comic book guy's voice.
excuse me.
Pardon me.
Pardon me.
Pardon me.
There's
You clearly got
clearly
something
a
wrong.
clerical
No.
error on your
To whom
IMDb.
it may concern, on
Okay.
behalf of Joseph Running Fox.
So, what did everybody think of the movie? What are the ratings?
Oh yeah, we need to do grades.
Yeah, the grades.
Hmm.
I would give it a B. It's definitely a underappreciated movie within the Walter Hill catalog. It's a little too lean, but it's hard to complain when a movie's too short as opposed to too
Yeah.
long. But it's a solid ensemble.
I also give it a B because, like I said, it was very well done. it just felt kind of slow for me. I don't know. That's
I give it an A minus. I wanted more.
Yeah, honestly, that's what I was going to give it a B.
Honestly,
And I actually might go down to a B minus because of Jeff's points. It could have been more and more of Geronimo.
sure.
You know, I think it's well crafted. So I might still stick around B. It's hovering around the low Bs.
We missed out on a lot of like a deeper history for the Apache too, because like before the Americans came along and started screwing them over, it was the Mexicans, and then the Comanche once when they
Right.
got horses, because the Comanche were like, you picked on us for centuries, now comeuppance.
Right. Yeah, we didn't really get any of that. It could have been a whole lifespan. It could have been starting and from his youth and then comparison once he's just downtrodden.
At the same time, though, we don't know that from a historical perspective. Like, we don't know his childhood or anything. We know of the dude that fought the cavalry.
Right.
Like,
well, that's why this movie was made this way.
Right.
Right.